You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another Random Thoughts. Today I wanted to talk about the generations of my channel, which I've done on a Red-Eye Raw before. I thought here the main focus I would have is to try and rank them as to what I think is the best generation of this channel, because there's different charms and drawbacks to each of them. So we'll start with what I think is the worst and work our way up to the best. Now, I've talked about what the generations are multiple times, but I'll briefly go over it here. There was a Gen 0, which is anything before 2010, because I started the channel in 2010, but there were videos I made prior to that, some of which would later get put on the YouTube channel during Gen 3. And then Gen 1 of the channel is 2010 to 2012. Gen 1.5 was when I was not on YouTube myself, but was uploading or participating in collaborations on my friend Gaming Retextured's channel. A channel which he has since wiped. Most of those videos can't be found anymore. Elements of them can be found in some of my videos, but he wiped his entire channel, so there's not really any way to find a lot of those. But that was during a 3-year gap between uploads between 2012 and early 2015. And then in 2015 until 2017, probably early 2017, was Gen 2. Gen 3 was 2017 to 2019. Gen 4 was Gen 20 to mid-2021. And Gen 5 is now, starting with late 2021 until now. There's various reasons why these generations exist and why I separate the channel in that way. And I've gone over that before in plenty of videos and streams. And I'll probably touch on it a little bit as we're going on through this video. But nevertheless, I've already done that, so let's go ahead and jump into what I think is the worst generation of my channel. So first things first, I'm going to say I'm not going to count Gen 0 or Gen 1.5, because neither of them were me uploading content to the channel at the time. I would say the content I made in Gen 0 is probably my worst content, because it was made prior to 2010, and I was, a stupid kid. So a lot of it, I was a teenager. I started the channel when I was 16, and so anything prior to that, I was even stupider. So Gen 0, it has its moments. I tried to make machinima, and I uploaded everything of that I could to YouTube thus far. There's still some Gen 0 videos that are difficult to upload, but maybe someday will find their way onto the channel. But I'm just not going to include that because it's not a real generation of the channel. And Gen 1.5, again, a lot of it's gone, and it was mainly just me hanging out with friends on Xbox Live and trolling people on a different channel, on my friend's channel, as a collaboration. Those aren't going to be ranked, so let's just start with what I think is the worst one, and that is Gen 1 of the channel. Now, why do I rank Gen 1 of the channel as my worst? Well, it was the start of the channel, so I was still getting used to things, right? It was 2010 to 2012. I was a dumb teenager. And a lot of the videos I was making were very poorly made. We were making everything through shitty webcam videos. We were recording gameplay screens with a webcam. And we were providing very shitty to little to no commentary and making stupid skits. There's a charm to it. It's fun to look back. It's nostalgic. And it is kind of fun to see the kind of thing I used to make. But at the end of the day, it's a very different direction than what all of the other generations of the channel would be, and it's very different than the type of content I make. It is fun to go back and revisit from time to time, but once again, not exactly the best generation on the channel. It's the worst. Coming up in 4th place, we have Gen 4 of the channel. Now, Gen 4 is not too dissimilar from Gen 3 of the channel, but the key distinction was Gen 4, I was going through a lot of shit in my personal life throughout 2020 and part of 2021. So I became very antisocial, and I stopped communicating in the comments. I didn't upload for the first 3 months of 2020, and there were no live streams during Gen 4. It was very antisocial. I would occasionally respond to a couple of comments here and there, but largely I was pretty radio silent, hence why I often refer to it as the radio silence era. There were good things to come out of Gen 4 of the channel. I did upload some of my back catalog of stuff I'd saved up in Gen 3 that I hadn't finished editing, and finally uploaded it during Gen 4. Gen 4 also saw me open up and be a lot more honest about hot-button issues like politics and philosophy and things like that. So I definitely became a lot more openly, right-wing, and, willing to talk about that kind of thing in Gen 4. It's not that I completely avoided the subject in previous gens prior to that, but I did try to tiptoe around it and be like, oh, I don't want to talk politics, guys, let's not talk politics, that kind of gay shit. But Gen 4, I just decided, I was becoming more and more cynical and jaded, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go gloves off, I'm gonna say whatever I want. And this really did kind of start in Gen 3 with the Rio video. Actually, no. The Rio video was in Gen 4. That's right. So there you go. It completely changed the way that I handle things on the channel. I also grew a beard during Gen 4, which I've had since then. I mean, I've shaved it off once or twice since then, but it is a staple of my appearance now. There are good things to come from Gen 4. That's when Red Eye Raw emerged. I mean, there was a couple episodes of Red Eye Raw prior to that, but largely it's a Gen 4 thing that started, and obviously it's still ongoing to this day. But the antisocial aspect of it and the lack of live streams, I really think, put a damper on it. And I think really a lot of it is the content was fine that I was uploading, like the reviews and shit I was uploading were good, and on par with the stuff I was doing in Gen 3 of the channel. But the problem is that it's hard to look back on, because again, there was a really tough part of my life for some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. Everything's good now, but at the time, there was some rough stuff, so it is hard to look back on that. Because there is sort of an air of gloom, and that's probably just because, you know, I have more knowledge about it than I'm leading on, because, you know, my personal life is my personal life. But it is tough to look back at just because of that. But again, the content wasn't too dissimilar from Gen 3, other than the antisocial aspect of it. And again, the positive being I became much more open and honest and willing to talk about hot-button issues. Next up, we have Gen 2 of the channel, which again was 2015 to early 2017. And with Gen 2 of the channel was when I rebooted it. And for the first bit of Gen 2, we were still doing the webcam videos like we did in Gen 1. But that was phased out in favor of videos filmed with cell phones. And also, we started using, and by we I mean me, I started using Xbox Upload Studio. And Gen 2, one of the great things about it was there was a lot more of Team Red Eye involved, right? Like, it was me, it was Snowman, it was Dozermac, it was Danny. All of us were just much more involved in making the videos. We did snack reviews, and I mean, we still do those, although a lot of the time it is just me now, but this was before everyone had, you know, conflicting schedules, and some people had moved further away, and people had lost interest in doing the YouTube side of things. So it was really a golden age as far as, like, just being a channel of me just hanging out with my friends and making videos for fun in that regard. The content in Gen 2 is not the greatest as far as quality. The videos made with Upload Studio have all sorts of audio problems because there's no way to control it. All of them were made with unrelated gameplay. The editing was shit because I was using a combination of Upload Studio and YouTube's video editor at the time, which is different than the one they have now, but there are similarities. But even then, it's not the greatest editing software because it was just on YouTube and you could just splice videos together and do small minor trims and things like that. There wasn't a whole ton you could do with the old YouTube video editor. And in fact, again, it is pretty similar to the one they have now, but there were differences. Gen 2, I hadn't started live streams yet, but I did start doing playthroughs using Upload Studio, but since I couldn't record gameplay and voiceover simultaneously, I sort of did after-the-fact commentary, commenting on the gameplay, like sort of like a recap, being like, oh yeah, this is what was going on here, this is what was happening here, or I'd just talk about shit and ramble on. But there is a special place in my heart for Gen 2 of the channel, just because of the fun aspect of just hanging out with me and the guys. We're just making videos for fun, and we were all involved. Like, again, that is still very much the mentality of me with the channel, but a lot of the guys, like I said, some of them lost interest in it. Some of them moved away. We all sort of have conflicting work schedules and stuff now, and we don't all live as close as we used to. It's not like we're worlds apart. There are still chances of the guys coming back in videos, and they still do on occasion. But there is a certain aspect of the channel, a certain heart to it, that really was a Gen 2 exclusive thing. Alright, now on to my second favorite generation of the channel, which is Gen 5, which is the current generation starting in 2021, late 2021 until now. Gen 5 is the current gen, like I said. It's very similar to Gen 3 of the channel. There are other differences here and there, but Gen 5 is more or less an extension of Gen 3. The only reason I rank it lower than it is because Gen 5 does have a little bit of, like, burnout, and there is a little bit less of some of the series I want to do more of, and there will be more of it. It's not quite the golden age of the channel that Gen 3 was as far as me pumping out new content. Like, obviously, I still do content pretty frequently, but a lot of the time it is just live streams or random thoughts and kind of half-ass stuff, and then we get big, like, actual videos every once in a while. Again, there are, basically Gen 5, there are, like, batches where I get a ton of inspiration, pump out a ton of videos, and then I go back to kind of the burnout where it's just a live stream here and there, and then a video here and there. Again, still frequent content, but still, there's a lot of things I would like to do that I haven't gotten around to doing, and there's still like elements of burnout and things like that. Nevertheless, the content I do make, I really enjoy making, and I really like the way it turns out. Not to mention, I edit videos on Corbin's channel as well, so there's a lot of fun in that. So Gen 5 is my second favorite for a reason. I think it's great. There's a lot of things I love doing now. But it doesn't quite reach the golden age of Gen 3, because Gen 3 was fucking awesome. Speaking of which, let's talk about my favorite generation of the channel, Gen 3. So why is Gen 3 so high? Well, Gen 3, again, that's 2017 to 2019. It was peak Fugitive Red Eye. I was doing so many different little collaborations. Chutters was added to the team. Corbin was added to the team. Gen 3 is when I met Corbin. And that was a huge game changer in the channel because Corbin sort of became kind of the co-host of the channel in a way. And he's just as prominent, well, not just as prominent, but he's almost as prominent as me on the channel. He's the co-creator of Sergeant Friends, which was started in Gen 3. Gen 3 is when I started editing videos with Movie Maker, which again, you know, ass backwards as it may be, it's still how I edit my videos to this day, and it gives it a certain charm that I like. It kind of gives me my style. Gen 3 is when I really figured out what I wanted the channel to be. I got plenty of great reviews out during Gen 3. I started live streaming, and there's a certain feel to the earlier live streams that you just don't get with the current live streams on the channel. And don't get me wrong, I love the current live streams on the channel. And I love the regulars that show up. They're entertaining, sure. But it does get a bit much when the chat is just Andy making arguments against points nobody made and just saying a bunch of things, talking at you rather than to you. Chisu just spamming the same shit over and over again because I didn't read it the first 50 times. He thinks for some reason I'm going to want to read it the other 50 times. Like, he just copy-paste shit of ideas that he has that I don't care about and are all kind of the same. And then Francis coming in and telling me, hey, you didn't play this game. Oh, look, you didn't play this game. I bet you haven't played this game. Oh, you haven't played this game. And it's not like I have anything against these guys. They're great. They're my regular chatters. I like them. Don't get me wrong, guys. If you're watching this, I'm not saying anything bad against you. It's just, when that's the caliber of conversation that we have, it gets to be kind of dull to try and engage with the chat, which is why during a lot of streams now, I'll ignore it. But at the height of the streaming in Gen 3, we had me, we had Corbin, we had Louie, we had Ethan, we had everybody showing up in the chat and actually making genuine conversation that was interesting and engaging and fun. We literally played guessing games with the chat. Like, Gen 3 streams were something else, and there's a certain feel to it. Like, I was playing Ape Escape, I was playing Morrowind, I was playing Call of Cthulhu, and granted, I still play all of these games on stream and stuff. But it's not the same because a lot of the crowd that used to show up during Gen 3 of the channel just aren't there in the chat anymore. Now, granted, with Corbin's case, it's because he's often on mic with me, basically co-hosting the stream from Discord, which is great. I much prefer Corbin now than Corbin back then, because Corbin back then would be annoying and spam the chat with edgy shit that was over the top and just no substance. But at the same time, there is a certain charm that I miss to that. I miss those streams because it was such a unique experience. And again, I hate engaging with the chat half the time, and I still do engage with the chat. I still talk to the chat, and there's still regulars I enjoy talking to. And the guys that I named before, I still like talking to them on occasion, and every once in a while Chisu will have like a normal conversation with me when he's not trying to spam some retarded idea that I don't care about at me. Or every once in a while Andy will say something funny or tell me about some interesting tidbit I don't know about. Or Francis will say something that makes me chuckle. Like, there's still fun to be had in the chat. But Gen 3's live streams were something else, and you kind of had to be there to get it. Now granted, as I said, Gen 5 I view as an extension of Gen 3. There are a lot of my best videos I think I made in Gen 5. But as a whole, as far as consistency, I think Gen 3 was the peak of my channel. I loved it. And again, I do recapture that from time to time. Like I said, this current Gen 5, is an extension. But Gen 3 can't be topped. It was fucking great. Because we still had the old guard in it. You know, Dozermac would still appear in videos somewhat frequently. Like, nowhere near as much as he did in Gen 2, but he'd appear every once in a while. Or Snowman, same thing, would often appear in videos every once in a while. Or Danny. Like I said, a lot of these guys will still occasionally appear in videos, but it's been so fucking long since any of them have. You know, there was still that, right? The old Team Red Eye still showing up. But then there was the new ones. There was Chutters, there was Corbin, there was Anthony. Awesome Gamer for a little bit. In the stream chats, mainly. He wasn't really a collaborator, but he was in the stream chats. Like I said, I still appreciate all the members of Team Red Eye that I have. But again, Gen 3 was such a unique beast because you saw this interesting between where you got both old and new Team Red Eye alike appearing in videos semi-frequently. And it was a really unique experience, and I loved it, and I think back very fondly of it. I still love what I'm doing now. Gen 5 is great. But I've just been thinking about that, and I hope you enjoyed this random thoughts of me just kind of revisiting the different gens of my channel. I know I've talked about these things multiple times in other videos, but I hope this was entertaining enough. Either way, I'm not going to do a ton of editing to it, so I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Toodles.
You take forever to say nothing.
Subscribe to Fugitive Red Eye.